As people have been battered into hearing over the last several days, we had that electoral event known as Super Tuesday this week. And here for a slightly different take on it, perhaps, is Ryan Grimm. Ryan is an author. He's the Washington bureau chief for the Huffington Post. He's written for a number of publications, and he has written at least one book. This is Your Country on Drugs. And he joins us now. Ryan, thanks as always for coming on the program.
Yes, and none of the other books have been published or will be, so that covers it.
Oh, okay, good. I'm glad I got the full library, the full the Ryan Grimm oeuvre covered there. Is that how that word's pronounced? Oeuvre?
I'm going to take your word for it.
Okay. Well, good luck with that. Thanks for coming on the program. So Super Tuesday is, of course, an event where many primary voters cast their ballots, and even more pundits cast their opinions about those who cast their ballots. And let's start with the meta story, if you don't mind, Ryan. We can talk about the results, but what, in your opinion, you're a veteran media watcher as well as a member of the media, what was the dominant theme of the coverage, if any, that struck you coming out of this Super Tuesday?
Well, it was that the frontrunners front-ran, and I thought that was fairly accurate coverage. If you are somebody who did not want to see Hillary Clinton move closer to the nomination, or did not want to see Donald Trump move closer to the nomination, then Super Tuesday was not super at all for you. Every day, every election day where people who were in the lead expand their lead, is one day closer that they lock it down, and that their opponents run out of time. Hillary Clinton back in 2008 might still believe that if she had endless time, that eventually she would have worn down and caught up with Barack Obama. But mercifully, at some point in our election system, the elections finally do stop. And that's not good news for people like Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz or John Kasich or Bernie Sanders,
right,
for that matter.
Right, and I always, I tell people several times a show, I do work for Bernie Sanders in my other life, so everything I say about him can be taken in that context. I guess one thing that strikes me, though, people will, and this is not specific of Bernie, but of anyone, people will build up a challenger and tear down a frontrunner in many cases in order to extend the suspense. And I wonder what would have happened. Bernie came within 18,000 votes of winning outright in Massachusetts. As it is, he got 45 delegates there. She got 46 delegates. So not a runaway win. What would have happened if that had flipped? Would people have said, well, she won 6 states, he won 5, therefore it's still anybody's horse race? Or would people still be saying the same thing they're saying now?
I think the media narrative would have been mostly the same, and that's because of the black vote. Mm-hmm. I think that the press is very closely watching black turnout and how African American voters split, and if they don't see Bernie making inroads with that vote, then they don't see a path forward on his nomination. And a lot of liberal white activists kind of don't see, I don't want to call it the moral path forward, but it becomes difficult to hold the position, that she's not winning fairly, or that say the right wing of the party is voting for her, if you're getting such paltry numbers with the African American community. I think even if he had improved from a Saturday in South Carolina to Tuesday in places like Alabama or Georgia, and showed that he was continuing to close the gap, what the media cares about really two things. They care about movement and they care about possibilities. So if they see some closing movement, let's say she only won the black vote Tuesday by 20 points, then that opens up the possibility that the next time it's 10. Or if he could even split the black vote and then win the white vote, then you see an obvious path. Without that happening, I'm sure you've done the math yourself. It's much more difficult, and you have to really run up the score in a lot of places like Minnesota, et cetera, that don't have the delegates you need, and don't quite have the moral authority to a typical Democratic voter, if you know what I mean by that.
Yeah, it's a complicated issue. We're talking with Ryan Grimm, Washington bureau chief of the Huffington Post. It is complicated. It is the sense of movement there isn't being seen. Somebody asked me today, and I didn't know the answer. I don't know if you do off the top of your head, but how did Bernie do with younger African American voters? My sense is he did better than he did with older voters, but I don't know if
That's right. I think that's right. That's what I've seen. I don't know the exact numbers, and we actually won't have exact numbers because the exit polls overall are borderline accurate. They're all you have to take them with a lot of grains of salt. And when you get down to these smaller and smaller sample sizes,
right,
like young African American male voters, young African American female, or young African American, you're getting down to a place where the numbers aren't as reliable as you'd want them to be, which could maybe explain why, say, Trump won Latinos in Nevada or something, or maybe he did, or why Bernie appears to have won Latinos in the Nevada poll, but appears to have lost them at a bunch of Latino precincts.
Right.
So it's hard to know. But what you can know is that Bernie does better with young people.
Right. Apparently across racial
lines.
Yeah.
Absolutely across racial lines. And then also older black voters are more conservative.
Right.
And they vote more. Older people vote more than younger people.
Right, there's a pattern.
Racial lines.
Right, the pattern is the same. Exactly. One thing that I noticed, this shows the extent to which I can think in trivial terms, perhaps, but the New York Times, in its color-coded results, which I'm looking at now, gave both frontrunners, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, the colors of their respective parties, red and blue. They gave Ted Cruz gold, which I don't fully understand. They gave Marco Rubio, with his one win in Minnesota, purple, which I'm not even exploring. And they gave Bernie green, which is interesting. It's almost as if he were the Green Party vote.
Well, maybe they were thinking of the Vikings for Marco Rubio. They should have given Bernie red, right? But unfortunately, the Republicans already have it.
Right, it's taken, which is an interesting change in our political culture, that red used to mean communist evil. Now it means Republican evil. Now, Donald Trump, let's talk about Trump for a second. Donald Trump certainly seems to be the guy on the fast track to win the Republican nomination. I want to stand up now and say, when everybody was laughing at Donald Trump and just waiting for the gaffe that would take him out of the race, I said he could go all the way. I have had maybe it's because I remember, I'm actually old enough to remember I was a kid, but I'm old enough to remember when they laughed at Ronald Reagan. And we all remember when they laughed at George W. Bush, big goofball, who didn't win, to be fair, but did become president. So, when people laugh at right-wing or right-wing ideologues, I don't know. I just think there's more power in a mythology than sometimes people get. And now Democrats are saying that, we're really glad if it's going to be Trump because he's going to be so easy to beat. That just brings back traumatic memories of what they said about Ronald Reagan. Are Democrats being too sanguine about Donald Trump?
I think they are. I can't claim, though, to have foreseen how strong he would be thus far. But on the other hand, I at least have learned from that. I don't know. A lot of these Democratic observers who are so sanguine about his general election chances, like you said, were laughing him off several months ago. So if they didn't know then, why are they so sure that this time that they're right? The map, as we've been talking about for years, the last several years, the map is and remains a difficult one for Republicans when you think about what kind of needles they have to thread in order to get to the 270 electoral votes. So then you have to start asking yourself questions like, okay, well, which states are they going to win? Are they going to win Florida? Are they going to win Colorado? Are they going to win Pennsylvania? And so, are they going to win Ohio? Where do they get their numbers? And I think that Colorado is, people think of it as pretty blue, but they threw out Udall in 2014, right. And it's a swing state with a lot of kind of a lot of Trump type folks, and the same with the whole Rust Belt, where he'll be battering Clinton with NAFTA all across Pennsylvania, and Ohio, and Michigan. That's that's going to be tough, and the turnout numbers I don't think are spooking Democrats as much as they ought to. If Virginia had something like 265,000 Republicans vote in the primary 4 years ago and had 1 million vote,
right,
in this one, I mean,
and while Democratic turnout is going down, and there's every reason to believe Republicans, at least a number of voters, are going to be very excited about Donald Trump, not so excited about Hillary Clinton. I mean, I do think that's a legitimate concern. And speaking of Donald Trump, by the way, you reported on something interesting this week about a movie that's coming out.
Yeah, and so even if liberals are sure that Trump won't become president, corporations are preparing themselves for that possibility. And I reported on there's a new Sacha Baron Cohen movie coming out on March 11th. Have you heard of this film?
No, I actually haven't.
And that's the thing. Nobody has. Until I got the tip on this, I hadn't even heard of this. It's it's his first really big movie since Borat, and you can't find anybody that knows anything about it. Now, if you Google around, you will find there's that he's been trying to promote the movie. It's called the Brothers Grimsby. The problem for Sony Pictures, which is the studio putting it out, is that it has a scene that goes hard after Donald Trump, and in his Sacha Baron Cohen's very over the top, gross out kind of way, Trump basically accidentally contracts AIDS in the movie, and the studio executives, according to 4 sources that I spoke to, are panicked about this and nervous that the famously litigious Trump, who could be the next president, is going to live up to his reputation as a vengeful guy and take it out on them. And so they have pulled back on most of the marketing budget, and subsequently you haven't heard of it. Now, Baron Cohen very unusually had authority over the film, so the studio couldn't take it out. So this is what they could do. So
the ever classy Sacha Baron Cohen has got the scene involving the man who might be the next president of the United States. Well, I look forward to reading Sony's internal emails about this whole situation the next time they get hacked. But it's not like something bad has happened to Sony recently. But it's really fascinating, and I'm not sure exactly how you uncovered this story, because actually this movie, I think, is a bigger secret. I mean, I'm told he was on Jimmy Kimmel recently talking about it, but to me it's a bigger secret than some of the other things that were in those emails. I mean, I've heard nothing about it, and I guess that's why they're afraid. I mean, I guess litigation aside, I guess they might also be concerned if the most powerful human being on the planet hates their studio even more than the North Korean government does.
He also, for decades, has been bashing Japan, and Sony is still a Japanese-owned company in the end. And so, executives back at home and Japanese executives are not at all looking forward to a Trump presidency. And I would actually say that if you look back at what Trump was saying about Japan all through most of the 80s and 90s, it actually exposes him as being 100% wrong. You pull up the clips and he'll say the Japanese are the smart ones. They're doing exactly exactly what they need to do to get their economy going. They're the ones that we should be modeling our economic system after. And as anybody knows who's watched, if we would have followed that and gone along with what Japan did, it would have been an economic disaster. They've been a basket case for 15 years.
Right. They haven't been able to recover from their recession as we have from ours. But so it's a fascinating situation where Sony now finds itself potentially crosswise of the next president, certainly the next probable Republican Party candidate, because of what, in all probability, I have to say from my heart, is a crappy movie.
I haven't seen it.
No, but I mean, he's just been going downhill since Barat, and I just have a feeling this may not even live up to the artistic standards of The Interview. But but that's just me. But it's a fascinating story. It's a fascinating sidelight to the Super Tuesday results, and I really appreciate your perspectives on those as well. So Ryan Grimm, Washington bureau chief of the Huffington Post. As always, thanks a lot for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.